Refined sugars really shouldn't even be considered food. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And I mean, realistically, when I say that, it's true. I mean, for all purposes, they might as well be a poison. Now, do they have calorie value? Sure, they have calorie value. But even then, people will say, yeah, but we need glucose and everything, which is fine. I don't disagree with that. But most of your refined sugars are at least 50% fructose, okay? And it's fructose in a form that our gut doesn't handle because it doesn't reach our gut, it reaches our bloodstream. And fructose is generally not a fuel source for the human body, right? Most of the cells in our body don't metabolize it correctly. It has to be converted by the liver through the same pathways that alcohol converts it. So it's like, yeah, we can get glucose from it with a mild toxic effect to get it there. You kind of see where we're going. So when I make that statement that it is a poison, well, I mean, yeah, it kind of is. Not just kind of, but in the way that we ingest it, it is a very, very mild poison. Okay? Now, does that mean all fructose found in nature? No, not necessarily, because fruits are different. Why? Because they don't reach our bloodstream for the most part as fructose. So usually in the matrix of whole food and fruits and things, what happens? Our gut ferments it. Like fruit, most of the fruit calories are fructose in there because it's got fiber, it's in the matrix of a whole food, it reaches our lower intestine. Our gut flora are actually pretty good at converting fructose that sits in there a little while. They ferment it into glucose, in which case we just get glucose. That's fine. I mean, we make glucose out of everything. We make it out of protein. We can even make a small amount of it out of the glycerol backing on fats and triglycerides, right? Like it is our body's preferred fuel source, right? We know this. This is understood. But when people bring that up, they're like, well, it all just becomes glucose. Yeah, but this is not a good process to become glucose unless it's done by the gut. But refined sugars don't do that, do they? Refined sugars don't reach the gut. They get absorbed in the upper intestine, right? Our stomach acid breaks them down, both sucrose, high fructose, corn syrup, even honey, all that stuff. It breaks it down into free glucose and fructose. It hits the upper intestine and gets absorbed right into the bloodstream, okay? Then our body has to deal with it. It has certain enzymic pathways that it can convert some of it, and then anything that those pathways do not handle. And keep in mind, there's a limited amount they can do per minute. So this is why that fast absorption matters. Because if we exceed that, which again, this free fructose, if we exceed that, it has to be handled by the liver. The liver handles it. And so then the liver converts it into glucose for us through the same process as it does with alcohol. This also causes problems with our liver enzymes, the same way alcohol does. It can cause non-alcoholic fatty liver, causes insulin resistance, causes elevated triglycerides. Okay? Those elevated triglycerides are absolutely catastrophic to our health. Again, we talk about things that cause heart attack, things that cause heart disease, things that cause inflammation. This creates extra inflammation in the body that we do not need, that we don't benefit from. And again, not all inflammation is bad. Again, understand inflammation can be a good thing. In a healthy, balanced environment, inflammation is a normal part of many of our processes. But in this case, it ends up creating a disease condition of it. Okay? That elevated inflammation, those elevated triglycerides can do what? They put stress on the heart. They can elevate blood pressure. They can cause damage to various arteries, capillaries in the body. This also then contributes to things like diabetes, insulin resistance. And what happens when those things happen? Then we start to malfunction the way that we use glucose. All right, this is the problem on top of that. So you have all these other things. And then when we can no longer properly metabolize glucose, the main fuel source, the sugar we want, now we have real problems. Now we have problems where our body has to overproduce insulin to deal with it. We get things like high blood sugar or we get excessive insulin. This starts to damage tissues in our body. Okay, this starts to contribute to cancers. This starts to contribute to heart attack, to stroke. All right, this is a problem. Also makes us feel bad, makes us lethargic, promotes weight gain because we move less and we eat more. This creates metabolic malfunction. And I mean, we could have real conversations about fat in our diet, but a lot of the saturated fat in the context of when carbohydrates are managed, or fiber and vegetables are good, antioxidants are good, we have enough omega-3, it's in a more whole food form, it turns out it's not as bad as we once thought it was. Now you start adding a bunch of table sugar to it, now we really have a bad combination. You add these refined fructose to a significant amount of saturated fat in your diet. Well, then it really becomes a problem. Okay? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't care at all about saturated fat. There are definitely contexts in which we should, and we do need to think about the forms of it. We need to think about how it's balanced in our diet. Just like with fructose, right? With fructose is not by default bad, just like saturated fat is not by default bad. In an unbalanced, unhealthy environment, and unhealthy food sources, or where we have certain nutritional deficiencies, right? So the fructose without the presence of whole foods and fiber, right? That's a problem. Well, the same thing with the saturated fat. When antioxidants, omega-3, fiber get too low, yes, they elevate LDL cholesterol. Yes, that contributes to atherosclerosis. Yes, it contributes to insulin resistance. But that's the same sort of talk, right? Just like we're talking about the refined sugars versus whole food fructose, found in fruit, completely different animal. But the problem we're having here is the fructose seems to be, at this point, I've seen even experts point out meta-analysis showing that it looks like fructose, refined fructose, may be the primary driver of obesity in our society, not because we store it as fat, because we don't store carbohydrates as fat per se, but the metabolic dysfunction that it creates, right? Which affects our insulin response, affects our appetite, affects our ability to burn even fatty acids for fuels, okay? This, again, creates a condition of metabolic disease that causes downstream obesity, right? We're not storing the fructose itself, but we get to a point of where we start storing all the fat. This is not a good situation, right? So yes, a lot of this, by simply removing refined sugars from our diet and treating them like a poison, a lot of these problems could be resolved, couldn't they? All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.